All right. The last story today comes from Ars Technica. This one is near and dear to my heart because it unfolded on the Fediverse. And so it was wild watching this.
So you're saying it's your fault?
No, it's not my fault. Yeah, this comes from Ars Technica, and the title here is FortiGate admins report active exploitation 0-day. Vendor isn't talking.
This, by the way, is a very scary scenario for me. This is one of the worst case ones in my mind of things that keep me up at night. Please, to your summary, sir.
The exact timing of everything is still very unclear to me. Even after I've read everything that I could find about the situation, sometime before October 13th, there was it was detected that some adversary was exploiting a vulnerability in FortiManager. And effectively what it relied on was, and I'm oversimplifying to a fault here, so apologies, but if you connect, all you need to connect a FortiNet firewall into a FortiManager is a certificate. And through a vulnerability, you can effectively force feed it a FortiNet firewall. And then there was also a vulnerability in the FortiManager, that would allow an actor-controlled or an adversary-controlled firewall to run a arbitrary command on the FortiManager. And that, by the way, would happen regardless. So as long as there was some way, some sort of connection, even if it was behind NAT, even if there was a firewall in the way, if there was any sort of connectivity between the FortiManager and the adversary-controlled FortiNet firewall, they could effectively take over the environment.
Yeah, and to be clear, the FortiManager is a tool meant to manage a bunch of network equipment, including firewalls.
Yes.
And it was remote code open to the internet for a lot of people. I think somebody said 60,000 of these were seen with Shodan. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, but what made it worse is that FortiNet was not, they apparently were aware, but were not publishing any information. Now, at some point, I think sometime around October 17th, they allegedly, or as far as I can tell, this is where it starts to get murky. They sent emails out to some subset of their customers, letting them know that there was an update pending and that they needed to take some kind of protective or mitigating measures, removing access to the FortiManager from the internet,
but
and so on.
No vulnerability disclosure, no warnings, no.
It didn't say what happened or why.
Yeah. No sensitivity around it necessarily.
Just very mysterious. And it wasn't sent to everybody as well. There's lots of FortiNet customers saying, I never got that. Now, I don't know if they had the wrong contact information and they tried. I have no idea. But the problem here is there was some period of time where this vulnerability, which is very serious, was under active exploitation. And I think that was happening before FortiNet became aware of it. And then even after they did become aware of it, they started working on a fix, but they were not communicating. And it took a long time, by the way. I think it was only recently, within the past few days, that they actually published the CVE that actually describes what the vulnerability is, and as well as obviously releasing patches. So, but as far as I know, that is on your network, on the perimeter of your network, protecting you.
As far as I know, there's still been no public advisory from Fortinet on this.
They did. There is an advisory now.
Oh, is there now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This article's a few days old. Okay. Sorry.
It was on I believe it was on the 25th. Yeah, again, the timing is really weird. If you go to the FortiNet advisory, it has a date of October 17th, but then it says October 20th is updated on October 25th. And as far as I can tell, the first time anybody seems to become aware of it was on October 25th, which was only 2 days ago as of the time we were recording this. So again, I don't exactly know the timing. I think the problem I have with this situation is just the lack of transparency. And when you read this article, like it comes out in spades.
Yeah.
And it scares the crap out of me to rely on this thing to protect my network when I have this level of uncertainty about the status of one of my primary controls.
Yeah, I'm looking like in their blog. Look, this is live, so take it with a grain of salt, but I'm not seeing anything jumping out at me on their website, on their blog. I see a nice article they've published about nation states burning 0 days against Avanti, one of their competitors.
Yeah, I just pinged it to you. It's in their PCert.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Oh, yeah. But, yeah. Okay. Yeah. This was published October 17th? Up to October 25th. Odd.
Yeah, but then if you go down to the bottom, it says initial publication October 23rd. So that's why I say I don't understand. But, so if you are the user of FortiNet firewalls and you have a FortiManager, which you probably do, and it was in any way accessible from the internet, which was apparently a pretty good chance that was in fact the case, there are a set of steps that you really should be taking to determine if you were hacked.
The CVE was created on 9/27.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So September 27th.
Wow.
Wow. Look, I'm just reporting what I'm seeing. So
yeah,
that's what I was
allocated for you.
Yeah, does not necessarily reflect when the vulnerability was discovered. Okay, fine, but interesting because that's when Fortinet requested. Maybe it's coincidence. Maybe they had another CVE they were requested and repurposed. I don't know, but look, I think the takeaway is Fortinet was not being very transparent here.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
But credit to your amazing infosec.exchange Mastodon server on the Fediverse for participating in this situation.
Yeah. In fairness, it was Kevin Beaumont, who's on a different server, who was really leading a lot of the discussion. It actually linked to his account through infosec.exchange. So I
did see that. Cool. That's what I thought. That's why I thought he was on your server. My bad.
I think that's pretty cool.
I think if it weren't for your tireless efforts, civilization would collapse.
Totally. It's like critical infrastructure at this point.
I think so. I think wherever this is running should get like first priority for data or power restoration, like a hospital would.
I agree.
So, anywho, in all seriousness, a unacknowledged, actively exploited 0 day on a required perimeter-facing device like a firewall is one of my worst fears. That's bad news bears right there. And what could you do? I mean, I guess in the real world, if you got a sniff of it, and it looks like Reddit was one of the first places that started talking about this, you could swap for another vendor, but who's prepared to do that? Like, this is
not fast, not as a reactionary.
No.
Like, or a precautionary measure. No, like, look, bad things happen all the time. And as we've talked about several times today, it all comes down to how you respond.
Right.
And so if when you pick a vendor like this, there are going to be vulnerabilities. Like every stinking firewall vendor right now, whether it's Checkpoint or Cisco or F5 or Ivanti, like every single freaking one of them has vulnerabilities. Some are more frequent and worse than others. I will admit that, but like you're picking a somewhat long-term commitment, even if you ultimately will replace it after a few years. It's not something that you're just going to rip out on a weekend and replace. These are big, complicated things that are really tuned to your network. And so you are reliant on your supplier,
Right.
doing the right thing. And so I would be annoyed.
At least. And it's not just these major vendors. I think a lot of you probably have a concentration of risk if they're using cloud providers and relying on whatever the built-in ACL controls on the cloud providers are, which is even more integrated, and you can't just swap that out. You're in a shared security model at that point. What if this hasn't happened as far as I know, it's speculation. Let's say Google's, whatever their version of ACL controls are or firewalls are between subnets, has a serious weakness on the edge. Like
Azure has had that happen several times now. So it's not unprecedented. But again, like you're reliant, like they actually have to take action. And I think what annoys me about this situation is the lack of communication.
Yes.
And I suspect I don't know what was going on. I have no idea what's going on. I can only assume that they were trying to not make a bad problem worse by running around and telling everybody that there's some trivial 0 day that's easy to exploit and suddenly it gets way worse. But when you read some of the stuff that's even in their PCERT post, I believe it says that the exploitation was being done in an automated way. So it wasn't like it wasn't like a dialing for dollars. Like this was just apparently scanning the internet looking for vulnerable systems. So I don't know what percentage of systems exposed were compromised. And if they knew that was happening and they weren't communicating, like that's a bad thing. I don't know for sure that's what happened. I can't say that's what happened, but if it did happen, good God, that's bad.
Hopefully, maybe some of this press will get some reaction on them. But if they've already published an advisory, I doubt they're going to say anything more.
I agree with you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm sure this is a done deal for them. Look, I don't want FortiNet to fail. I don't think their firewalls are any better or any worse than any of the others. I think the impression here is the appearance is they didn't do the right thing here. And I really hope that is the case, that they fix whatever process broke down and they do better next time.
Yeah.
But as defenders, we have to be cognizant that we are really dependent on our vendors behaving. And if they don't, that can put us at grave exposure. So,
this means we should hand code our own firewalls each time.
Totally. Just like cryptography, we should.
I think so. How else will you know it's secure if you don't do it yourself?
True. Absolutely.
Anyway.
All right.
I suppose one last thing to be said, I suppose, is expose any of the internet you don't have to. Like, how many of these FortiManagers need to be exposed to the internet? Probably some variety, but probably not all of them. Don't be lazy. Don't expose stuff to the internet just because it's convenient. Stuff like this will happen. Don't do it. It's bad news bears. Don't do it. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the basics, right? Least privilege.
Yeah. Does
it need to have access to the internet? If not, why does it? And if you look at some of the Reddit discussions and some of the back and forth on the Fediverse, there's a lot of discussion about people should have, quote, should have known not to have it exposed to the internet. Yet so many people did.
To be fair, there are reasons. Like, I think it's too easy to just say nobody should ever do it ever. And because of your version of reality, I think there's probably lots of, like I was reading somebody was talking about lots of retail organizations use these to manage many retail sites. They have no back-end infrastructure to get to them. Like, look, we don't know everybody's situation. What I'm saying is that if you can, get it off the internet.
Amen.